be completely honest, I don't think that I'm a funny person. I think the only people who get my jokes are my parents, but that doesn't really matter because my blatant unfunniness and lack of humor doesn't even make a dent in the grand scheme of society. But maybe it does point to a bigger picture. A question. Are women actually funny? Now let me preface this by saying I am a feminist. My purpose in life is to stomp on the patriarchy and cure you of your internalized misogyny. The most important people in my life are Gloria Steinem, Angela Davis, and, well, me. But besides that, I still feel the need to answer this somewhat controversial question. We often think of a comedian as a predominantly masculine career choice, and statistically, that's the truth. When we think of famous comedians, we think of Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Russell Peters, Kevin Hart. We think of men. Even the top 10 highest earning comedians are all men, with the exception of one, Amy Schumer, who, for a lack of better words, is dreadfully unfunny and an inaccurate representation for female comics. But besides her, women aren't gaining the same recognition in the comedy industry that they are in other fields. And I truly believe that it's not because women aren't funny, but rather that this imbalance stems from how an audience perceives a woman's humor, and not how she delivers her punchline. From a young age, girls aren't encouraged to be funny. For a girl, a good sense of humor is a luxury. For a boy, it's an expectation. And I think the best and most frequent example of this is the first sentence that almost always comes out of a girl's mouth when talking about a guy that she likes. Oh my God, he is so funny. Now, when was the last time you heard a guy go, man, does she ever make me laugh? It sounds ridiculous, almost unnatural. But where did this come from? When did we start to assume that humor wasn't inherently feminine? Now, while it may seem unclear, the turning point was actually around the age of 10 or 11. And according to researchers working on the Global Early Adolescent Study, in association with Johns Hopkins University, this is the age when children's ideas surrounding gender roles and behaviors finally solidify. And much of this comes from the lessons we teach our daughters and not our sons. For example, what words do you most commonly associate with being ladylike? Polite, elegant, well-mannered? Now, what words do you most commonly associate with being manly, confident, bold, powerful? These aren't just arbitrary words. Do a quick search in a thesaurus and you will find yourself the same thing. Now, while gender roles continue to perpetuate gender inequality and sexism as a whole, they've had a lasting effect on two things particularly relevant in answering the question, are women actually funny? And the first of these two things being the style of comedy that female comedians choose to pursue. Imagine yourself as an up-and-coming female comedian. Well, your chance of success is minimal, at best. You have about two options to make yourself a household name. The first of these two options is to stay polite, and that most have a rating of about PG. Basically, you have to be Ellen DeGeneres. Or your second option is to be overtly vulgar and offensive and follow a similar comedic style to women like Lisa Lampanelli and Sarah Silverman. When women enter the comedy industry, they either have to stay polite and fulfill the role that society expects them to, or be the complete opposite to appeal to the shock factor. When you've been told from a young age that you're expected to be one way, you either submit or rebel. And this is exactly what we see with comedic style in women. But the roles that we inflict on our children not only greatly affect how we will eventually pursue comedy, but also how they will perceive comedy in the future. And much of this comes from the expectations we develop for society at this young age. I'm sure everybody in the room can think of their middle or high school class clown. He probably got on the teacher's nerves, maybe crossed the line a few times, but he made the class laugh. A lot. And I can also almost guarantee with 100% certainty that none of you stuttered or paused when I said he, because the class clown is almost always a boy. In an analysis by researcher Becky Francis from the University of Greenwich, the presence of humor is analyzed and compared from a male and female perspective. Francis notes how there is never a female clown that does not accompany a male one, whereas the reverse is often always the case. It is also mentioned how male silliness and humor in the classroom goes more tolerated by the teacher as opposed to the same behavior when exhibited by a girl? If in the place we spend our time the most as kids, we are taught that boys' humor is tolerated and expected, whereas girls is uncommon and discouraged, it should be no surprise that there is such a prevalent gender gap in the comedy industry. And while it may seem impossible to correct gender stereotypes and humor bias in just one day on a mass scale, by questioning the lessons we teach and are taught is the first step to noticing a difference in our perception of gender-based behaviors. And while I do admit, I don't think I necessarily have the best sense of humor, my attempt at making a few jokes, all of which I thought were funny, seems to have gone unnoticed, and thus further proving my point of why it's not that women aren't funny, it's just that you've been bred and grown to think that we aren't. Thank you.